It's kind of first-party hardware-ish for Xbox. Happy Friday, friends! It is Friday, which means we are podcasting, which means we are... I traveled this week, so I'm a little off with where I am in the universe of time and locations, but it is Friday, so we are podcasting. Hopefully you had a wonderful week. We are, whatever, Apple iPhone hardware launch day for all of those who are celebrating by participating in purchasing of hardware. But here we are, my friends. Let's dive in, because this was a spicy week, and Xbox is doing some interesting things, and so is Microsoft. But let's kick it off with this, because this one is kind of crazy, and I don't think really anybody saw it coming. So NVIDIA is going to be investing $5 billion into Intel to help co-develop x86 chips with RTX GPUs. This is fascinating for like $1 trillion reasons, because one, we all know what's going on with Intel. NVIDIA is really deep in bed with ARM. And so then here you have NVIDIA being like, hey, you know what? We're going to dabble in x86 as well. It's only $5 billion, right? It's only $5 billion. Now, granted, it's going to cost them more than that as they, invest not just money, but actual time and resources in to try to help develop these things with Intel. Intel, for its part, says this doesn't change their roadmap at all. And so this is sort of an add-on, if you will, to what they were already trying to do. And so this is going to be something to watch, because we're going to see x86 RTX system on chips that pair nicely up with Intel. And so we'll see what that means. A lot of questions also around ARC GPUs as well. Again, Intel saying nothing's changed for us, but you got to imagine it's going to change some things here. But this is probably been the biggest x86 news in, I can't even remember since when. Like, this is really big stuff. So the two thundering giants coming together here. NVIDIA, for its part, has always wanted to crack into the x86 market a little bit better, and people are going to be like, well, why didn't they pair up with AMD? Well, there's a lot of reasons why they're going with Intel right now. One, Intel's struggling, and so it's a value prop. Intel doesn't really have GPUs that compete with NVIDIA, and so if they can spread their wares across many different architectures, it's better for NVIDIA at the end of the day. Microsoft is also making a bunch of updates to many of its staple apps, if you will, that kind of ship with Windows. So Notepad, Paint, and Shipping Tool are all being updated again. I only highlighting the Paint here because Paint has evolved a lot, right? It has evolved a lot the past few years. Now there's this new Save As project, which doesn't sound like a big deal unless you're somebody who works with a lot of layers and works with reoccurring files, and you're not just using Paint to hack things up. So again, Paint is evolving to be a little bit more than just your novelty paint and crop tool and edit tool, if you will. So kind of a big deal. Notepad now supports features like summarize, write, and rewrite on Copilot Plus PCs with no subscription required. And the snipping tool now has a new quick markup feature at the end of the day. Visual Studio is getting a feature that is straight out of Cursor. So now you can select your model right into Visual Studio, which is or Visual Studio Code. So this is great. This is great. Now people are gonna be like, Brad, but Cursor is really just VS Code, and they did their own thing. And now it's just coming backwards, and that's perfectly fine. But this is a really good feature. I use it frequently inside of Cursor. The magic of Cursor is their own agent and their way that they do that. But this is good for VS Code. This is good for VS Code. So more options, mo better. So there you go. Let's see, what else we got here? Office 365, or I should say Microsoft 365 desktop apps. Everybody's getting a chat sidebar. Yay! This is the least surprising news probably, but the chat bars are coming, and they're going to be there, and you're not going to be able to get away from them. But that is what is going on there. Interesting news from Google. Google's bringing a Windows app. So this is bringing Gemini to your desktop for search and everything else. And so again, we'll be curious to see how this evolves, or is this Google being like, we're just going to put it there, just try to get more exposure, or are they actually going to continue to invest in this experience? We'll find out, but either way, Google is bringing their Gemini to your desktop. And also, Consumer Reports is calling on Microsoft to extend support for Windows 10. I wish them well. Microsoft is already going to be like, hey, you can extend support. All you got to do is pay dollar dues or use some Microsoft reward points. There's many ways you can extend support for at least a year. We don't know how much further than that. Consumer Reports obviously wants it for free and blah, blah, blah. They talk about how many computers are using it and leaving people behind. And I'm not saying their arguments are not valid, but Microsoft doesn't care. I really don't think Microsoft's going to care. And they're not going to come out and say like, hey, we're extending support after they're doing this massive push, which all of their OEM partners like, because that means people are buying new hardware, which is what Microsoft and OEM partners want. Sorry, Consumer Reports. This probably is too late, to be honest. Like if you wanted Microsoft to do this springtime, maybe would have been good. Maybe a year ago probably would have been good. But here we are. So, all right, on to gaming news, because it's interesting. It is interesting this week. So the Xbox app has been updated, so now everybody has access to all of the third-party stores, being able to bring them into the Xbox app. This is all ahead of the ROG Ally that is coming here. This is why it's all being shoved out now. There's a lot of stuff related to that. So it's out of beta. I bet it's all linked to that launch, so that when you get that device coming here in the near future, which we'll talk about just about in a second, and by a second I mean right now, when it comes out here in it's like 1 month away. And so Xbox, this has been living in my head for a while now, and it's continuing to validate and manifest in ways. Microsoft is hyping up the Xbox Ally as if it is first-party hardware. Now, it is very clearly third-party hardware, but this feels very first-party hardware-ish. Like, can you guys think of another third-party product launch that was getting so much hype from Microsoft that they're hyping up a product that is 1 month away that you cannot pre-order and we don't even know the price? This is I continue to believe the canary in the coal mine for how Microsoft is going to launch next-gen Xbox hardware from a variety of partners, and it's really the first device that's bringing this all together, because the line between what is an Xbox is really getting blurry these days. Like, is this thing an Xbox? We all know the answer is like technically no, but then what happens is Microsoft is moving all the games to be able to run on everything and anywhere. So then it's like more like, what is an Xbox? That line is very, very blurry. And that's why Microsoft started that marketing campaign, for exactly that reason. And so we are 1 month out. Microsoft is pushing this thing as if it is first-party hardware, because I guarantee here's what's going to happen. I want to know what's happening behind the closed doors with this conversation between ROG and Microsoft and what the deal actually is. Now, Jez Gordon said there was no subsidies or anything like that. Maybe from a pure monetary perspective, if every one of these things where you sell, Microsoft will give us $10, or Microsoft's helping pay down the price. He says that's not accurate, or it's not happening. I shouldn't say it's not accurate. He's just said that was not part of it. However, I still firmly believe that there's something in place between ROG and Xbox about this, and I guarantee Microsoft went to them and said hey, here's what we're doing for the next gen Xbox. We need somebody to be first. And if you're going to be first and help us sort of carve the canal for doing this type of hardware, we're going to offer you more promotional things. Maybe they're not charging them for the Windows license or Xbox license, right? There's a million different ways that Microsoft can craft a deal that is not truly like, hey, we'll help pay for hardware development. It's like, okay, just don't pay for certain things that we will traditionally charge for a device like this. Because it's not only a risk for ROG. Granted, they build devices like this, and it's not the first, but it's different. I think we can all agree this one feels different than the handhelds we had seen previously. And here we are, Microsoft hyping up a device that is 1 month away, that we don't have a price for, and you can't even pre-order. Something is different about this time around. And so I think they're going to take all the information they learned from this about how well it does or does not sell, and the pricing will be very, very important for something like this, right? There's been a lot of leaked prices, but there have all been placeholder pricing, like Best Buy pricing. And so I think we know it's not going to be $199, and I think we also know it's not going to be $2,000. I bite my tongue on that. We hope that it is not $2,000 at the end of the day. So here we are doing... It's just trying to figure all this out. Now, on the backs of this, there was a quote-unquote leak, but it was an update for Windows that allowed people to figure out how to actually launch this experience. And it is It's a good thing. This is something Microsoft had talked about previously, where they said, hey, we're working on a version of Windows that's a little bit slimmed down, a little bit better. And so it looks like it's using about 40% potentially less RAM than a traditional shell of Windows. Now, it is Windows, and you can jump back and forth, but Raphael was able to pull up the codes, and Zach did a good video on it. I haven't tried it yet because I was traveling all this week. But here's the deal. It uses less RAM. That is a very big deal in the gaming world. And so it's a shell experience that is Xbox. And I think this is the future. I genuinely think that whatever this mode is, right, whatever Microsoft calls this mode for internally, I think this is Xbox, if you will, right? When the next generation of hardware comes out, it's like, what's it going to be running? It's going to be running this. It's going to be running this version of Windows, and that's just going to be it. And Microsoft will find a way, or already has found a way, to make all their traditional Xbox games work in this mode, and then that's just how it's going to be. And then you can go out there, buy your Xbox or buy your PC and turn it into an Xbox, but either a license or however Microsoft is going to do this. I suspect it will be via license. They're not going to give this stuff away, at least I don't think. And then everything is an Xbox, right? Like the whole narrative is now here. We have this third-party hardware-ish. We finally have the semantics or the technical side of how the Xbox experience is going to run and the potential performance benefits of a lighter weight version of Windows. What's left? The only thing that's left at this point is making your true classic Xbox games work in this experience, and then you have your next gen console stuff. Like, that's it. Guys, that's it. That's the whole. That is the story. Now, people are gonna be like, "Well, Brad, but what about the Microsoft's working on their own?" Yes, Microsoft is working on their own hardware. Phil Spencer said they're still working on a console, but it's going to be a console that runs the same version. It's just you're just going to be buying the PC, which Microsoft already knows how to make a PC with this OS. I think that's it. I think that's the whole thing. I think we just kind of sit here and wait for the hardware to materialize, and you can go build an Xbox once this experience is available to everybody and easily enabled. And like, I'm tempted to do it. I'm tempted to try it. I'm tempted to take a swing, if you will. So there you go. Super fascinating stuff. Like, this is what I say, like, you got to be paying attention to the tea leaves when this sort of stuff happens, because like, somebody please point out where that's wrong. Like, what are we missing at this point? What are we missing? I would love to know what I just missed by looking at that. So there you go. On to the questions of the week. Always my favorite part. Let's see if I can scroll without this screwing up too much here. We'll just go up to the top. We got 8 in the hopper this week. Oh, I forgot to pull it up on this device. Hold on one second. I forgot to pull it up here where it's a little bit bigger and I can read it a little bit easier because my eyes aren't what they used to be. All right, here we go. Ninmasters95 says, what games would you like to see announced at Tokyo Game Show? I thought you were going to say what thing. I'd love to learn more about what's happening with Gears of War. I'd love to learn more about what's happening in the Halo universe. But what games are they going to announce there? That I'm not sure. Because it's like saying, well, I want to learn more, like Clockwork Revolution. That's supposed to be coming out fairly soon, ish. That would be another good one for conversation as well. That one looks super interesting. So those would be 3 that I'd love to learn more about, but we'll see. Mr. Marty Yashaka, I cannot pronounce it, guys. I'm terrible with these things. He says, "Hi, Brad. First time commenter, as I only discovered your channel about a week ago. Well, welcome to the fam, or the chat, the Thunderdome, whatever. I remember recently a question about how console wars have ended. Do you foresee a forthcoming OS war between Windows, Xbox, and Linux, Steam, at least at the very in the handheld PC space?" So this is an interesting question, because initially, I'm like, my brain is like, no, we've already done the OS wars. Like, it's always been the year of the Linux desktop. Like, that is not a thing. However, it's not so much a war, because the Linux scene for gaming is a very long horizon thing. It is not something where Linux, like Steam, is going to push out some update next week and like everybody's switching to Steam gaming. That is not the thing. The thing is in the long term, what's going to happen, I believe. So you scroll back in the podcast where I'm talking about the Xbox hardware for the next gen stuff. We're already seeing it there. Eventually, like where and how games are built and function is going to be very muddy at the end of the day. And so it would be much easier to compare Linux gaming to PC/Xbox gaming. So I don't think you're too far off. They have a very big hill to climb on the Linux side to get to where Windows is. It's not something that can't be done. Let me be very clear, with enough dedicated effort and support from the gaming manufacturers or the gaming studios themselves. You have to understand that Steam can do everything, but here's the bottom line. Here's the absolute bottom line. When you're developing a game, let's say you're EA or you're Take-Two or whoever, you're building Grand Theft Auto 6, we'll use that, and they're looking at where this game is going to run. How much overhead is it going to be initially to build it so that it runs on Linux? It is not something where you just click an extra button and add the dependencies. Like it is a significant amount of work. And so how much overhead is that worth? Are there enough gamers on Linux to make it justified for that expense? And so that is going to be the cat and mouse game. Windows absolutely always makes sense. That's the largest platform. And then the conversation is going to be like, should we support Linux as well? Like, is that something we should do? And so that's going to be the life or death of Steam OS. Now, at the end of the day, the OEMs who build hardware outside of Valve need a reason to do this, right? And some of their reasons to do this, to get things started, right? Because it's chicken and egg. What comes first? More hardware or more gamers? So like you need both. If you're a third-party hardware manufacturer, there is benefit to doing this because you're not paying the license over to Microsoft to use Windows. So we'll see. I think it's a very long horizon look. This is not something that's going to change overnight. At least that is my expectation. Mr. PKI with a triple dose of questions. He says, do you like the Copilot app on the taskbar or do you like the web portal better? I don't use Copilot that much. So I'm a big Claude user. I'm even using ChatGPT less a lot these days. So I don't use Copilot. So I have removed all that stuff to the best of my ability, at least for now. Then he says, are you going to finish the Indiana Jones circle so you can give us a review of the DLC? Probably not. The problem right now is I've got to give up Helldivers, and I'm having a lot of fun playing Helldivers, so probably not. And then he says, with Windows 10 going end of life next month, does that make Start 11 more popular for users moving to Windows 11 who do not want the central taskbar? So yeah, Start 11 allows you to do all that stuff. The real interesting thing, so if somebody has another Start 11 question somewhere down here too. Like people don't recognize that I run the team that builds all this all the time. But anyways, one of the things that's very interesting right now is the corporate adoption of Start 11 right now is through the roof, right? So when Windows 11 launches and there's whatever, like there's the spike of consumer sales, we are definitely seeing a very heightened sell-through of Start 11 into corporate space as they're migrating from Windows 10. And so to answer that question, the answer is yes, actually, because people just want the standard layout. They want the Windows. The reality is that they want the Windows 7 layout, which was the Windows 10 layout, which is not the Windows 11 layout. And yes, you can do some of this in Windows 11, but the Windows 11 menu on the left side is like it's Windows menu is designed for centered experiences, and when you put it over on the left side, it's off. Like it's like you want to click the button in Word that aligns the text so that it's left justified, and it doesn't whatever. So yeah, it's going well. We'll go with that. SR1K3R581 says, any opinions on the $5 billion NVIDIA and Intel? It's good for Intel. It's absolutely good for Intel, which is good for their fab manufacturing, I would expect. So very biased opinion. I live in Ohio where they're building that fab, so that's good for everybody, right? Good for, hopefully they can get their fab back online and up and running and doing what they needed to do to be competitive. I'm not anti-Intel, not even at all, because they are a big company. They are an important company to the industry. And so I don't think really maybe some ARM companies or Qualcomm wants to see Intel or AMD wants to see them go away, but I don't. We are better off as consumers when we have Intel, AMD, and Qualcomm and all these companies fighting for our dollars in performance and value. And so I hope Intel can turn it around, and this is just one stake in the ground that's going to help them do such things. No Handle Here 55 says, hi Brad, I did the Windows 11 switch to all my PCs at the house, and I'll give you kudos to your Start 11. I promise this is not a burner account. Application that keeps the look of Windows 10 now that I hate the Windows 11 interface. I don't think you ever mentioned it on your podcast. Is there a reason as to why it's a great tool at a great price? I promise you that is not not a burner account. And so it does get mentioned. I typically link it, but I like there's two sides of my life, right? There's my corporate enterprise, I run a software company side of my life, and then there's the YouTube side. And yes, they do overlap because I have my corporate job because I like Windows and they crossed over nicely. But I don't try to make these things advertisements for the products that we build. Now, granted, I do promote them on occasion, but I try not to do it all the time. There's super interesting things when you mentioned at a good price, because we get so many complaints about pricing. It's been a couple of years now since we released version 2, and the conversation is there's so many things we could do, but should we release a version 3? Should we wait for Start 12, the next version of whatever? And so these are conversations we have because we try to keep the pricing as low as possible. Should we do a subscription? People will instantly say no, but it also gives us flexibility to do more. And Start 11 is not a subscription right now, by the way. Although we might A/B test it just because that's a natural part of any business cycle. But the expectation is we're not going to go full subscription on the Start anytime soon. So there we are. That got way off topic, but these are the conversations that we have. And for people saying, what is a good price? It's literally $10 to own a license, not a subscription. So that's without an upgrade. If you have an upgrade, if you have any previous version, and I mean any previous, going back to Start 8, so more than a decade old, and I think it's $4. And people will still complain about $4 for a lifetime purchase of an application, which I don't know what I don't have a great answer for those people who don't. I don't know. We're an American company making American software, and it's $4. And yeah. Anyways, I shall move on before I say something I regret. Johnny Ohio, I'm assuming is also in Ohio. He says, if you have a powerful PC with a 5080 like I do, nice humble brag, 5080 is a beastie little GPU there, and you have PC Game Pass, you don't necessarily need an Xbox console to play Xbox games, right? All you need is a PC and PC Game Pass. For the most part, and more so going forward. So there are definitely games that are available on the Xbox console that are not available on the PC version of the application. Now, there's a big caveat to that, and the big caveat is that my expectation is that every game going forward is going to be like that. You will be fine. It's only if there's older titles or if you have an Xbox library already that you may not be able to get. As an example, I believe Helldivers, I bought it on the Xbox console. I can't go play it on, I don't think, somebody please correct me if I'm wrong, because this is actually somewhat interesting to me. I don't believe I can go play that on the Xbox app on the PC. I don't believe I can do that. And so that is where it makes sense if you have an Xbox console to stick with a console as opposed to just going and building a PC at the end of the day. So, there you go. There you go, friends. That is another week of podcasts, another week of whatever. Hopefully everybody had a wonderful week. I'm in a great mood. Hopefully you are too. We will be back in a week, and make sure to keep it subscribed here because the BS on this podcast is me.